Hello students, welcome to the class of cell and subcellular organelle. Now we have all studied cells from our early biology days in as early as class 5 or class 6, or depending on what standard or what country you are in, we all know something or the other about cells, right? So in this video I'm not gonna tell you or elaborate about all the known things, because most of us will be able to write at least something about cells. So I'm gonna focus on some untold areas or some most neglected areas that may prove vital for you in the exam. So we all know how a typical cell looks like, right? And we all know what are the organelles, what are the parts of prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. I'm not gonna elaborate it, but one point for MCQ is prokaryotic cells divide by fission, and eukaryotic cell, as you know, they divide by mitosis. Rest everything is well known. Now this is where the real deal starts from. When you are studying medical biochemistry, we will ask you about cellular or subcellular organelle, how to separate them and what are the markers. Okay, that's the most important question, and the first thing you will be asked is how you can separate various subcellular organelle. The answer is differential centrifugation. Differential centrifugation. And the instrument, the apparatus that we use is ultracentrifuge. What's the difference between normal centrifuge and ultracentrifuge? It's nothing but the ultracentrifuge can spin at a very high speeds, more than 1 lakh times g, that's acceleration due to gravity, whereas normal centrifuge can cap out at speeds of 7,000 or 10,000 Gs. All right, very important. Anyway, so this spins at a very high rate. So it may not be clear from this diagram. I'll be showing you elaborately in a table, but this is the figure that you will find in most textbook. That is, we take the whole cell. First we lyse the cell. Lysis means we do some technique by which the cellular membranes get ruptured, all the organelles from the cytoplasm comes inside the cellular suspension. Then we spin the total suspension in a centrifuge. Now when you centrifuge something, what happens? The solid things will get sedimented below, right? Because during centrifugation we are applying a centrifugal force, that is x, that is something multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity. So depending on how much force you are applying, the weight of the suspended material will increase manifold due to acceleration due to gravity, and they will move out from the center and eventually they will get centrifuged. So the thing that gets sedimented is known as pellet, P-E-L-L-E-T, alright, and the one which is not sedimented is known as supernatant, S-U-P-E-R-N-A-T-A-N-T, supernatant and pellet. So we increase the speed sequentially. When we are centrifuging the whole thing with a lighter speed, some things that are most heavier will settle first. We take that pellet and we collect this supernatant. Then we again centrifuge this supernatant at a much higher speed, so that something which is floating in this supernatant will now sediment. So likewise we do differential centrifugation. This is nothing but shown over here in this diagram. So as we increase the speeds, the lighter material starts to get sedimented, and then we can get the various subcellular organelles. So we need to know, number one, what are the speeds, or what is the speed and time at which the various organelles get centrifuged, as well as their markers, right? So first, 600 to 750 G for 10 minutes will give you nuclear pellet, that is nucleus. It is the heaviest and it will get sedimented first. The marker of nucleus is DNA. If we can detect DNA in the pellet, we are sure, confirmed that it is a nuclear pellet and the sediment is nucleus. Next comes mitochondria. Mitochondria is much lighter. In order to sediment mitochondria, we need to spin the whole suspension at 10,000 to 15,000 G. Mind, it is in hundreds. It is huge amplification of speed, and definitely this needs an ultracentrifuge. For 10 minutes, we'll give mitochondrial pellet. The markers of mitochondria are ATP synthase and the inner mitochondrial enzymes. Anyway, you can remember ATP synthase, that's more than enough. There's a spelling mistake, I'm so sorry, it will be one S. Anyway, human error. Anyway, next, lysosomal pellet, 18,000 to 25,000 G for 10 minutes. We'll give lysosomes. The marker for lysosomes are cathepsin and acid phosphatase. I don't know what happened to me, but consider this as a wake up call. This will be acid phosphatase. All right, lysosome. Next, we are going into lighter and lighter material. Golgi body, Golgi apparatus or Golgi complex, they sediment at 35,000 to 40,000 G, and we need to spin them for half an hour, for 30 minutes. Alright, the marker is galactosyl transferase. These are very important for MCQ, for both first prof exam, terminal exam, as well as your NEET PG exam. Next, microsomes. Microsomes, we need to almost spin it for 1 hour, 2 hours, and in a speed of 1 lakh G. Right, see, 75,000 to 1 lakh G for 100 minutes will give microsome. The microsomal marker is glucose 6 phosphatase. Alright, and what remains at the top, at the supernatant, is nothing but cytosol, the marker of which is lactate dehydrogenase. So cytosol will never sediment. Right. So endoplasmic reticulum goes hand in hand with microsomes, right? Now, apart from these markers, there are also few additional markers that you need to know. So let's discuss what we have already, let's revise. So nucleus marker is DNA. Endoplasmic reticulum, the marker is, as I told you, microsomes and endoplasmic reticulum goes hand in hand. So the marker is glucose 6 phosphatase, and you can remember NADPH cytochrome C reductase. So glucose 6 phosphatase and NADPH cytochrome C reductase. Golgi apparatus marker galactosyl transferase. Mitochondria ATP synthase. All right. Lysosomes marker cathepsin and acid phosphatase, just discussed in the previous slides. And peroxisome, the marker for peroxisome is catalase. Alright, next we will discuss few information about some organelle that we may not be knowing in a regular basis. I know you know most about nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum, their normal function, and it's much easier to just recollect them from the +2 knowledge, right? Now, regarding nucleus, one thing we should note is the nuclear envelope. Nucleus has two membrane, right? The nuclear membrane has got an outer membrane and an inner membrane. The outer membrane is continuous with the endoplasmic reticulum. Very important. Okay, this is a very important thing to remember, which may be new to you, right? Next, explain why type of question, and explain why type of question may come in your every exam henceforth. That is why lysosomes are known as suicide bags. Now, it's actually very easy to remember. Now see, lysosomes are membrane bound organelle which have got many enzymes for cellular digestion. I mean, all the waste products, the garbage disposal system, means we deliver all the waste products to the lysosome. The enzymes in the lysosome will act on the waste products, they will disintegrate them, and they will again deliver it to the cell for synthesis of new material, right? So inside lysosome, it's very hostile environment which is not very suitable for outside the cells. The enzymes that are inside the lysosome will destroy everything, right? So if due to some reason the membrane of the lysosomes rupture, or they get destroyed, the enzymes that are in the lysosome will get outside in the cytosol and they will destroy all the materials inside the cell and the cell will die. That's why lysosomes are also known as suicide bags. Now I'm not gonna discuss all the clinical aspects of all organelles. As I told you, you should give a read of the textbook and those are easy to remember, but these areas may go overlooked, so it's my duty to discuss over here. Lysosomal storage disorders are must know areas. Okay, you should always read the chart of all lysosomal storage disorders, the name of the disorders, the name of the enzymes. That's it. You don't need to know the clinical features. There are few common clinical features of lysosomal storage disorders that applies to every one of them. That's your homework. Anyway, inclusion cell disease, you should remember for an MCQ, it is a protein targeting defect and it is again a lysosomal, it's related to lysosome. You see, this may be your very first class, but I am telling you all this because when you go to appear in the next few exams, it will come back to you. Anyway, remember gout, you have heard about this disease, about the knees of elderly due to high uric acid. They have got pain in knees and ankle joint and great toe of feet, right? So what happens in gout? The uric acid crystals or monosodium urate crystals, they are phagocytosed. They get inside the cell, they destroy the lysosomes and the lysosomal enzymes get outside the cell, outside the lysosomal cavity, and they cause inflammation and arthritis. Also, as I discussed, cathepsins, these are the marker of lysosomes. They are implicated in tumor metastasis. Metastasis means when a cancer spreads. When a cancer is not localized to a certain area, it spreads all over the body. It has a very bad prognosis, and almost always a metastatic tumor means it's in the last stage. Anyway, those are also triggered by lysosomes. And a disease named silicosis, it's a disease of lung due to inhalation of silica particles. In that disease, lysosomal enzymes are released and that stimulates the inflammatory process. Now, why I am telling you all this? I don't want you to get burdened with everything, every information, but just note this down, and each of these lines that are mentioned in pink color are potential multiple choice question that will help you in your upcoming competitive exams. Anyway, next we move on to peroxisomes. So what are peroxisomes? They are also membrane bound organelles and they are actually they play a role in metabolism of free oxygen radicals. Very important, right? This is the first and major role of peroxisomes. There are multiple reactive oxygen species in our body. Those are also known as ROS. They may damage the cells, but peroxisomes take care of them. Apart from them, they also help in synthesis of cholesterol and lipids. They play a role in bile acid formation and catabolism of long chain fatty acids. So overall, peroxisomes play a major role in lipid metabolism. Of course, we will be discussing various chapters of lipid metabolism in detail, and then we'll always get back to peroxisome, but as an overview, you should know peroxisome play an important part in lipid metabolism. In addition, they have also got some important role in catabolism of purine, prostaglandin and leukotrienes. Each and every one of them are a chapter, right? We'll be reading them very soon. Next, they also help in alcohol detoxification in liver and metabolism of estradiol, the active form of estrogen. See, I am not discussing nucleus, mitochondria and all other so-called important organelle because they don't actually come often nowadays. It's these rare organelles that are asked in Viva, right? Lysosome, peroxisome. They are, because examiner knows that everyone might know about nucleus and mitochondria, but not about endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, but not these. So you should know about these, right? To differentiate yourself from just everybody. Anyway, peroxisomes. The name peroxisome, why? peroxide because they play a unique role in metabolism of H2O2. These peroxisome, as I told you, they contain the enzyme catalase. This is the marker of peroxisome, and these are the reactive oxygen species that are rendered harmless within peroxisomes. How they do it? These are the two reactions. Of course, again we'll be reading them in detail in free radical metabolism of free radical and antioxidant. Everything will be dealt in much more detail, but as an overview you should know that reactive oxygen species like H2O2 are broken down in peroxisome to harmless water and oxygen. Since they break peroxides, they are known as peroxisome, and the enzyme concerned is catalase, right? This is enough. But few names, again as I told you, we'll be reading them in detail, not only in biochemistry but also in pathology and medicine. But these are potential MCQs. Adrenoleukodystrophy. Now we are studying medical science and it's time to just remember few things and learn some difficult names, right? So Brown-Schilder's disease, it is characterized by degeneration of liver, kidney and brain. Autosomal recessive may be difficult and you may not remember each and everything right now, but at least make sure if you are appearing any quiz or any entrance exam or any Olympiad, being a medical student, if this thing comes in your way, you shouldn't make a mistake. Your goal shouldn't be just to pass your next prof exam, right? We need much more extracurricular activities as well. Anyway, this defect is due to insufficient oxidation of very long chain fatty acids. We'll be dealing them in fatty acid metabolism as well, but for now you should know certain peroxisomal disorder. Number 1 is adrenoleukodystrophy, number 2 Zellweger syndrome, and number 3 primary hyperoxaluria. Just know these names. Alright, the mechanisms, of course it's written here. If you are interested, you can read them. Remember, during the first few months of your biochemistry curriculum, depending on when and what institute you are in, there will be an exam of gold medal and a class assistantship, either GM exam or CA exam, and these are the few areas that may not be known by everyone. These will be asked, and if you qualified through that exam and you are awarded with a gold medal or a CA, remember you will get a certificate which will help you lifelong, and your names may also be imprinted on departmental boards. Anyways, now regarding mitochondria, we know it helps in production of ATP. How? By cellular respiration, the electron transport chain. It also helps in oxidation of carbohydrates and lipids. It also helps in urea and heme synthesis. See, this thing and cellular respiration, everyone will answer. Everyone else may also answer carbohydrate and lipid oxidation. But this urea synthesis and heme synthesis, this is also one important multiple choice question, right? So you need to remember this. Now, why mitochondria is known as powerhouse of the cell? Very obvious. It supplies energy packets, that is ATP. The inner mitochondrial membrane contains the electron transport chain that helps in oxidative phosphorylation. Now, apart from that, matrix of mitochondrial enzyme helps in tricarboxylic acid cycle or Krebs cycle. I'm sure most of you know, and beta oxidation of fatty acid also takes place in mitochondria. So it's performing everything. That's why it's known as powerhouse of the cell. What's important is the disease that are related to mitochondria. Again, few very difficult names and you should know. Love's disease. Just know the name. You don't need to know what are the clinical features, treatment, diagnosis, management. That will be taught in medicine in subsequent years. But as a learned, as a brilliant first year student, it's your duty to at least know the names. Again, mitochondrial myopathies, it will be taught in physiology, but know this, it's due to mutation in mitochondrial DNA. We all know Parkinson's disease, cardiomyopathies, these things are a part of mitochondrial DNA. Now, from your basic knowledge in genetics, I think you already know that mitochondrial DNA is circular. What else is circular? Prokaryotic or bacterial DNA, right? And also any mitochondrial diseases are maternally inherited, means it will come from mother to son. However, the son cannot transfer because it can be transferred only via a female. So it can pass from grandmother to mother to daughter. But if there is a XY in the pedigree, it will not be transmitted vertically. Anyway, so what happens when we consume antibiotics, that is the medicines which kills bacteria, it only stops prokaryotic replication, transcription, translation, the things that will be taught in future, but it has no effect on eukaryotic cells. It kills prokaryotic cells. However, remember, all antibiotics also attacks mitochondrial genes. That is why the side effects of all antibiotics are there, because they attacks mitochondrial protein, they inhibit mitochondrial protein synthesis, right? You know what, mitochondria actually looks like bacteria. They, as I told you, the DNA is circular. Moreover, there are multiple genes and codons that are different in mitochondria compared to normal eukaryotic cells. So it has been postulated that mitochondria were actually parasite which entered the cell during the course of evolution. A eukaryotic cell originally didn't have this organelle, but somehow it entered the first primitive cell, and then it continued to replicate, and then it became an integral part of the cell, and it actually provides most essential function, that is provide cell respiration and production of ATP, thus known as powerhouse of the cell. And lastly, cytosol, that contains all the soluble cellular components, right? It's a media platform which supports various cell organelles and supplies various cofactors that we need for energy and metabolism. Also, there are multiple biochemical processes like glycolysis, fatty acid synthesis, etc., that takes place in the cytosol. So, in a nutshell, let us revise all the important function of subcellular organelle. At least you should remember two for Viva, any two. So, nucleus, DNA replication and transcription, right? The list, you can take a screenshot, or you can watch this video again, or you can make your own notes. Endoplasmic reticulum, most of us know, it helps in protein synthesis and ethanol oxidation. You can write any two of these, right? Lysosomes, very important, garbage disposal. So they degrade protein, carbohydrate, TP. They help in degradation. They help in waste disposal. So any two of the four metabolites are, you can remember. Next, mitochondria, definitely electron transport chain, ATP generation, Krebs cycle, everything takes place in mitochondria. And as I told you previously, heme synthesis and urea synthesis is important when you go to later parts of the curriculum. And lastly, cytosol, there are multiple processes that takes place in the cytosol, so you can mention any two of them or more. So we can compare the whole thing to a factory. This is what we were taught when we were first taught lessons about a cell, right? You can see plasma membrane, it acts as a fence with gates that can open when a message is received, right? The manager's office is the nucleus. The endoplasmic reticulum acts as a conveyor belt, a pulley that helps in production units. It's wrapped and packaged by the Golgi apparatus. It's degraded. Incinerators are the lysosome that will help in garbage disposal. Vacuoles are the lorry that carries the finished products, and everything is powered by mitochondria. So I hope this brief lesson will complement your textbook read. Feel free to get back to me with any query, and I will see you soon with another video. Till then, bye and take care.